Good evening, good evening. Once again, it's Monday evening. My name is Odie Hawkins, and we're going to sit here once again and talk to you a little bit about some of the books that I've written. 38 published so far. But before I start off with my part of the program, let me introduce Zola Salena-Hawkins, who is producing, directing, and sort of waving a wand among us all.
Yes.
My wife, Zola Salena-Hawkins.
My husband, Odie Hawkins.
Black authors do matter.
Yes, black authors do.
I see you got one on too.
Yes, yes.
Oh, look at you. I can't do that. I used to be able to do it, but I can't do it anymore.
You can if you like. You can do anything you want. Right?
So here's looking at you.
And here's looking at you.
Before we start, I'm sipping a little tea.
And a little pomegranate juice.
Okay, we want to make this as folksy and humane as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So grab yourself something to sip on, and you'll get into what we're talking about in just a little bit. For those who are new to what we're talking about, let me say this is a homey, folksy attempt to advertise some of my books. I'd like to say all of them, but all of them are not worth advertising.
Well, there's one in particular, but we won't go into that.
The book that she's referring to is called Black Casanova, and she hates it.
Chili. Yes,
And I discovered after I had written it and all that, I didn't like it too much myself.
It's one F after another.
This evening, we wanted to talk about this particular book. This is called A Storyteller's Story. Can you see it closer?
Yes, let me put it up a little closer. Storyteller's Story. Yes, indeed. Odie Hawkins.
I've written 2 autobiographies. One of them I wrote too soon. The book was called Scars and Memories, and I think I was in my 30s or 40s or something like that. And I think it's possible for someone to write an autobiography when they're young. I mean, you don't have to get to be 87 years old to write your autobiography. But I think it helps because it gives you a chance to review what has happened in your life.
Reflections, yeah.
Yeah. I look at Scars and Memories, and so much of it was just flash and fluff and you know, what did I write that for?
The money to go to Europe.
We'll get to that.
Okay. Well, before we really get down to the session, why don't you tell us about your writing and your process?
Okay. I had my first published book happen in 1972. It was called Ghetto Sketches. As you can see, we're working our way up through this pile. And by the time we finish this,
The latest version of Ghetto Sketches.
by the time we finish this, we will have a pile this high.
Yes.
Ghetto Sketches, published in 1972. And there was something that you wanted to ask me about what was going on at the time.
Well, the thing is, I wondered why you went to Holloway House. Were there other opportunities? I know this was a time when Amos and Andy and other things that were related to blacks was being kind of shot down by the bourgeois black folks. Okay. White folks still enjoyed it.
Yeah,
But bourgeois black folks was like, no, we don't do that.
You're right on the money.
Now.
Okay, 1972, some people might not be familiar with this era.
Especially those born in 1990, but go ahead.
Hopefully some of you all are older than she is. Anyway, in 1972, coming out of the Watts Writers Workshop, I went into it in 1966 and wound up having a series of marvelous teachers, a man named John W. Block, Louise Merriweather, Harlan Ellison, several other people who were just wonderful. I was a writer without any knowledge of writing, or I've been reading books all my life, but I had no idea how they were written, what went into the making of one of them.
Okay, but you had these teachers, these seasoned authors who were giving you the foundation on writing?
Ground. I mean, I'm talking about concrete. Do it this way, or else it won't work.
Right.
They weren't that way,
Right.
that adamant, but they were pretty much like that. In any case, when I finished writing in 1972, I finished writing the book Ghetto Sketches. My writing teacher at the time was a man named John W. Block, and he thought it was publishable.
Yeah.
So he took me to his agent, and Stu Robinson said, yeah, it is publishable. And we're talking about hardcore businessmen. They were not paying a whole lot of attention to the racial picture, except that they had to.
But John Block was teaching you guys for free. Right?
Yeah.
And he was philanthropic person.
Yeah. John W. Block, the person she's mentioning, was a old-time screenwriter. And when the Watts revolt took place in 1965, and Bud Schulberg, who wrote On the Waterfront, and What Makes Sammy Run, and a couple other best-selling books, decided that in the Writers Guild there were only like maybe 9 or 10 black writers in a union of 9,000. They had a few other stray people, a Native American here, a couple of Asians, but it appeared that the Watts Revolt, which we always would call it, which is what it was, they decided we need to have some of these people get into the Writers Guild, maybe the Screenwriters Guild. It might help them become more productive citizens, and it'll tamp down some of that creative energy that we see exploding. So they wound up opening up the Watts Writers Workshop. Bud Schulberg was responsible for doing it. I got into it in 1966. It was going full force, and we wound up with these marvelous teachers that you're talking about.
Besides John Block, who else was?
John Block, Louise Merriweather, Holland Ellison, who was a science fiction writer, and I wish I could remember some of the other names. Some of the people only came in for like we call them celebrity sessions. It might be some famous writer that they knew from whenever, and this person would come in and give us an hour and talk about writing in general. Some people were interested in writing specifically screenplays.
Right.
I discovered early on that I wanted to write novels. I also got into screenplay writing too. I discovered screenplay writing was a lot more rewarding than the novel, but it shows you where your heart is, because I never got the satisfaction out of writing screenplays that I've gotten out of doing the novel. Anyway, Ghetto Sketches was shopped around, and in 1972, if you lived in Los Angeles, it would be hard to explain to the present day generation how difficult it was for an African-American writer to be published by any of the so-called traditional publishers.
Right.
It seemed that what they wanted was academic studies. They wanted some sociological treatise. They wanted something that would be acceptable, as you say, by...
Well, you know, I always love it when they say standard English. So ask the English if we speak standard English. So, you know.
Okay, well, Ghetto Sketches was definitely not written in standard English or had standard English in mind, because what I decided to do was take a street. I lived on a street in Chicago called Washburn, and I decided a Welsh poet did this called Dylan Thomas, and he wrote his way up one side of his town and down the other. I did a similar thing. A lot of other people have done it.
Right.
I decided to go up and down the street that I lived on the west side. It was called Washburn Avenue. And in my mind's eye, I could take you to the west side of the street, which started at an alley and go straight up the street, past a series of porches, until we got to Reverend A.T. Tiller's Sunrise Baptist Church. The little gangway right beside his church. Next to his church was a mom and pop grocery store. Next to the grocery store was a sort of a subterranean backyard. It was below the street. Then in the next door to it, we lived in the basement of Aunt Mary's house, where she was running a gambling establishment on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning before she went to church. And then so forth and so on, till we get to the end of the block where they had an A&P store with a fan running around on the ceiling.
So you wrote about the neighborhood, and people could read this book, sketches, and slip into the neighborhood.
They had no choice. If they followed the little trek that I was taking them through, and of course, with a neighborhood on the west side like that, most of the people that I found, excuse me, I ate something earlier that stuck in my throat.
Okay, we'll work on that.
But I'm trying to ease it out.
I'll get you some honey tea or something.
In order to be truthful to the surroundings, truthful to this village, I thought that I had to populate the village with authentic people, and the authentic people on Washburn Avenue generally were like my West Side family, my father's side, and mostly come up from Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama.
Right.
Okay, and they talked like people who came from lower class Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama, and
which I can totally appreciate, because I always thought Roscoe Lee Brown spoke that way.
I'm sorry.
Yes. And when you revealed to me that he learned to speak that way.
What do you mean?
I was shocked.
You were shocked?
I was shocked.
Really?
Yes, I really was. And so, I didn't think, that a person would delve into that dialogue and make it a part of him, like James Baldwin perhaps. And it's like one of the singers that we hear on the radio that sings everybody else's voice but his own. We don't know what his voice is like. So with your characters throughout all of your books, I listen to them, I read them, and I hear them talk to me.
Okay, you're not the first person to tell me that, and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and I do criticize when I don't think they're talking about ideas. Yeah.
Criticize. I started out being whipped into shape by people who were authentic, and all they were doing was subconsciously helping me to create the ghetto sketches, the language of the ghetto sketches, so that it came off seeming very phony when someone would have a person start speaking in a tone and using words that those people would not use. For example, one of my uncles might say something like, "Took that over here." They could always have, in some ways it was almost like a West Indian patois, except that it wasn't from Barbados or from Jamaica, it was from Yazoo City, Mississippi, not Mississippi. They let me know it's Mississippi.
Well, in talking with you about this now reminds me of when occasionally we would have guest ministers at my grandfather's church in Haverstraw, New York. And usually they would show up dressed in suits and everything, and the vest, and a huge cross, a huge cross on their chest. And they would start speaking in $5, $10, $25 words that were not appropriate for the sentences. But they
were being impressive.
They were trying to be impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was talking to, and also an educator. My grandfather's and grandmother were graduates of Tuskegee University. So some of the audience had actually gone to college. Grandfather knew Latin. And so, of course, when people were speaking in languages that did not, communicate what they were hopefully trying to say, he was gentle and very less critical, but he would not invite them back.
Okay, but I think you pointed your finger at one period of time, and I'm not a linguist, but at one point in time, coming up on the west side of Chicago, you could almost determine what educational level somebody was coming from. You could almost determine what kind of home background they had, whether or not they said blessing before they eat dinner, and on and on and on. And on. In the situation we were in on Washburn Avenue, I could have been living in some small village in Africa. We didn't see white people except when they came through to sell stuff.
Okay, right.
Like insurance, you know, 50 cents a week or something like that. The point, coming back to Ghetto Sketches, the point that I found myself trying to make without hesitation was to try to be true to the authentic voices of the people. Coming to the agent, okay, Stu Robinson was a wonderful agent. All he could say is that, look, John W. Block is someone I trust. John had beautiful credentials. He was the kind of guy who would be able to call to go to Sweden for a couple of weeks to help Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah, I remember you telling me there came a point in America where ageism was keeping him from his craft.
Yeah.
And so, as often the case, Europe is more accepting.
The artist,
for the
it's an artist. The older you get, you might be more acceptable in some way.
Right. Well, you have more of a foundation.
Yeah, the point you're making that he told me about, I didn't think about you very much about it then. I believe he was 60-something. And he says, well, okay, you got a double whammy going against you. You're black, that's given. And also you're going to be 50 years old, maybe 20 years from now. Well, maybe 15 years from now. And you'll find gigs, if you can find them, much more harder to come by because the baby moguls think they know everything and they control the purse strings. Okay, so that was another thing. When Stu first got the manuscript and talked to John Block about it, first he didn't talk to me about it. John came to me and said, Stu says he can't read it. And, you know, like, what do you mean? He says he can't read it. He doesn't understand what's going on. Well, what do I do about that? John W. Block says, you don't do anything about it. I'm just relaying some information. This is what you're going to have to do going uphill. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it. There was a publishing company in Los Angeles at the time called Holloway House Publishing Company, right over there on Melrose, who were, I don't know, these guys, there were two businessmen who saw a niche and they widened it. And to their credit, they were accepting manuscripts written by people like me, in language that they had no connection with or understanding of or appreciation of. But they saw that there was an opening there, and so they bought Ghetto Sketches.
Negroes have money. Colored people have money.
Gotcha.
Black people have money. And maybe some white folks who like to read black literature also have money.
Okay, and that was a market that nobody knew existed until I began to get little, what do you call, fan notes from people saying, you know, oh, it's so interesting to have someone who knows the scene reveal what it's like and, you know, get inside the other thing. We're not writing about that sociological stuff of, well, I was born in Harlem and I looked at the world through a prism of magnificence and, no, this is just somebody, look here.
No.
Okay.
Let's get back to a storyteller's story.
Storyteller. I guess that's why it's called a storyteller's story. Anyway, the book, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The book is about me, but it's also about many things that were happening at that time. I think this is why I went off on a little tangent about why the Ghetto Sketches was published by these particular people. It seemed that there was not a great market for truthful stories about African American writers' lives unless you were an academic. Okay, we've gone quite a little ways now. We've gone all the way up to the point now where if you tell the story truthfully, You can be banned.
Yes, you certainly can
And
be
you
banned.
certainly can be banned a lot quicker if you happen to have a little more melanin in your
Well, in fact, I know if you were, quote unquote, more famous, most of your books would be banned because they are very direct and they talk about children and people doing things that are not perhaps socially acceptable,
supposedly exception.
but real. Okay, that happen in many cultures.
Okay, this is one of the things I think you asked me the other day we were talking about it. Why do you think after 38 published books, how many? I had 17 published by Holloway House, and then the other ones have been self-published.
Right.
And I'd like to say a word or two about the benefits of self-publishing as we go along. But one of the reasons why, number one, was that early on there was a resistance to having people speak the way people speak. And I had the opportunity for about 4 years to teach writing class at two prisons, Chino Prison in Southern California and San Quentin in Northern California. And there had some marvelous writers in prison who probably would never be published because they were writing about both the dirty, rotten things some of them had done, and also writing in a language that was like another language. And they were reading books that I'd written, and I got a lot of compliments from guys who said, you know, I find your book as hard to read as mine. Why is that?
Well, yeah, like I say, most of your characters, you can, they read so real that you can identify with them, and you make them have voice. You know, there are certain voices that I love to hear. Ben Caldwell, Roger Crothers, okay,
Yeah.
that have a unique flavor. Okay, his wife Sandra, and people have a unique flavor to their conversation. Ralph Vernon, okay, you know, Palmer. Just certain people have that, and so when you write about them or write about similar characters, they immediately jump up off of the page for me.
Okay, it just so happens, I think, that I've been fortunate enough to be living at this period in time a very extraordinary life. I'm not talking about miraculous. I don't fly to the moon on windy nights or anything like that. But as I started looking back, let me give an example of what she's talking about.
Yes, please.
A storyteller's story is about a writer telling a story that happens to be his story. I dedicated this to a lady named Queen Zola Salena-Hawkins. Got that?
And let me point out that I love the storyteller's story because it's about a certain writer's life that has a lot of truth in it, but a lot of fiction, like a gumbo. A lot of fiction put into it too. So some of it is like, oh, it could have happened, but it didn't. Or this actually did happen. And isn't that unbelievable? Please.
She's right. Chapter 1 is situations growing up. Relax. You got everything you need?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Two of the things I've always admired about myself was my ability to go back to sleep after being awakened too early. The other thing was my ability to forget about being killed. Let me explain. I have to go back a whole bunch of times when my life was threatened by circumstances I had no control of, or what happened as a consequence, in order to explain what I mean. Pressing my memory app.
Oh, go ahead with your badass.
I'm going back to the first time I blundered into the death zone. Can't think of a better word for it, better name for it. How was I? 5, 6 years old maybe? 7, running in out of the streets over there on the black section of Oak Street on the north side, the near north side of Chicago. Those who know Chicago know that there was a side of, well, anyway, the different there were different ghettos. There was the South Side Ghetto, North Side Ghetto, and West Side Ghetto. The lake is to the east, so no ghetto in the lake east. Where else were we supposed to play? No playgrounds in our section then, and maybe not even now. Yeah, playing, playing this crazy game of catch me. I ran into the passenger side door. of a long limousine car. Boom. The car is passing right there. I ran into it. Did I die? Maybe. So far as I was concerned, it seemed like I was dead. I fluttered around inside of myself like a very calm butterfly. I was in a deathly high, and it felt beautiful. Mm-hmm. This death had a softness, a beauty I had never experienced before. Mm-hmm. Am I tripping here?
Yes, you were.
Years later, drunk on a cheap beer during a hot, humid Chicago summer day, I tried to equate that experience to being born. It didn't work. I had no high from being born.
That you recall.
Nothing to equal the euphoria I felt when I was taken into the death zone. Mm-hmm. The death zone euphoria didn't last very long. An emergency trip to the White Hospital verified the fact that I survived a pedestrian encounter with a chauffeur-driven limousine with no apparent permanent damage to my small body. I was a tough little kid.
Yes, you were, Paul.
Cars mess with me, I'll show you.
Still is.
I'm a little smarter.
Okay.
This boy ran into the passenger side door of our car, causing a large dent. We didn't run into him. Mm-hmm. That's what I heard the driver say in my butterfly-driven fall. Mm-hmm. If he had run out into the streets 2 seconds sooner, we would have run over him. No doubt he was right. None of the details mattered. I was still alive and anxious to get back out there, to continue our fun and games. Mm-hmm. The doctor advised Mama to keep me in bed for a couple of days, give me a few aspirin, I guess that's what they were, no high there, and bring me back to ER if I started seeing double. Mama, usually a rebel, obeyed the doctor's instructions to the letter for 2 whole days, quietly quizzing me about the state of my being. How you feel, baby? What can I say? I felt wonderful, divine, young.
I lived.
I'm okay. Can I go back out to play now? Let's give it another day. On the morning.
Black mothers can be so deceptive.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Maybe mothers as a whole race.
Mothers in general, that's true. Okay.
The race called motherness.
Motherness, yes. She's a mother.
On the morning of the 3rd day of my forced lock-in, I was planning to sneak out and play. If I was not granted official permission, Mama ambushed me at the pass. How you feeling, baby? Oh, okay. Can I go out to play now? Yeah, you can go out to play just soon I get to whipping your ass for disobeying me. How many times I told you not to run out into this thing? Richard Pryor has a perfect stroke when he how many times?
Yeah.
You know.
Got a really good wrist action.
I mean, you see that?
I know they do.
I was ducking and diving. I ran under the bed. I did everything. Anyway.
And the old saying, of course, is, I won't do it no more. I won't do it no more.
If you got a chance to say anything.
Yes, you got to.
I have no idea where this razor strap came from. Maybe she borrowed it from the local barbershop. No matter where it came from, it pursued me around the confines of our cluttered one-room apartment for about 46 hours.
Oh, dear.
That seemed to be, I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yes, a little.
That seemed to be how long the razor stropped on my ducking and dodging body. Finally, with my body sizzling from razor strop blisters, she collapsed on our beaten up camel hump bed and said in a very tired, clear voice, "You got to obey me now, else I'm gonna whip your ass." Mm-hmm. You hear me? Mm-hmm. I nodded, yes, yes, yes. Mm-hmm. what else could I do? That happened way back in my dream times, but I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten how far I was into the death zone by running into a car and by running up against Mama's rules. To this day, I avoid jaywalking. I go to the end of the block if I have to, no matter how far it is, and cross at the light. Okay, this is
That's the beginning.
my one of my closest friends, not you, but another close friend,
Okay.
not quite as close.
Okay.
Oh, come on, man. What do you mean? So you ran into a car? Yeah, he ran into a car. And the only conclusion he could reach is, no wonder you act the way you act. But I was 6 or 7.
Right.
And,
Right.
you know, at the time, when you're invincible, you know, I used to run over fire hydrants and knock them down.
Well, you were hoping to knock them down, but they tended to knock you down.
They tend, well, you look up and they jump back up so fast.
A storyteller.
Well, that's part of, thanks. I think I should say that.
Yeah.
Part of what's happening with this, and the stories continue, and both in that vein, I'm not taking year by year, but almost era by era, so that you could go from doing things like running into limousines on the west side of Chicago to living on the south side. And this is a story that happens in the book. I've always been a non-swimmer all my life for some reason. Here we are. We live right at the lake. And the people lived on the south side in Chicago, which is where we lived at one point. As a matter of fact, we lived, part of what the storyteller's story is about is Chicago, because we lived all over Chicago.
Let me interject. While you say you were a non-swimmer, I remember sitting around a pool with a friend. I was at Rhonda Jones's relative's house. And Roy Primiger was there, I was there, and other people were sitting around the pool. And I think I saw a little kid go up and down, this kid in the pool. And next thing I knew, you were doing a Superman dive into the pool and lifting the kid up. So I'm a non-swimmer, but everybody else around the pool was a swimmer, were able to swim. But you were able to save the kid, who was really on his verge to drowning that day. And so I think it was an example of things you say you're not capable of doing, but at the moment it's possible to do.
I remember that scene, and we've all had a day. We were in Lancaster or something.
No, it was up in the Pasadena area, right? Yeah. Pasadena area, and you room to watch that Retriesel had given you.
Visiting friends who had a pool, and someone said while we sat at the poolside, you know, keep an eye on the kids. I think they were over there playing whist.
They were not too far. They were just, you know, about where the camera.
They were over. The pool was what, 10 feet across or something like that. Yeah. And to this day, I tell you, it wasn't swimming. We were having a conversation, and I saw the kid go down and bob up with that look in his face, like, oh, wow, the kid is drowning. I wouldn't call it. I call it geometric reasoning. I figured, let me see, the pool is at that. This is automatic measuring and stuff like that. Oh, the pool is about 6 feet deep. If I dive in at this angle, I won't have to swim. All I can do is hit the bottom, bounce down, and push him up. And that's what I did. Yes. If I had stayed in the pool a little longer, I would have drowned. Because suddenly, I'm pushing him up over the side, and I'm suddenly
trying to save yourself.
Trying to save, but
that was the moment.
But I pulled it off because I managed to get hold of the side of the pool like I had done something.
You had saved the child's life.
I had saved the child's life.
Okay.
But in this case, we are running around the lake, Michigan, gorgeous Lake Michigan in summertime. And a friend of mine named Mooney had a couple of, what do you call it, this, inner tubes. He said, hey man, I got some inner tubes. Let's go to the lake and, you know, walk around in it. Totally unpatrolled, you know,
no lifeguards.
No lifeguards. Yeah, right. Like, you know, Chicago's lined with these pharaonic-sized rocks. They must have been building pyramids a long time ago and gave up. And there we are, you know, take off your clothes. We're down to our shorts. Hide your clothes under the bushes right here. And Mooney could swim. He jumped in through his inner tube in the water and jumped in and started swimming around like a duck. We had stopped. We got air in the tube, and I threw my net. I hadn't thought about not being able to swim. I thought if I get to the inner tube, I'll just hold on to it and have fun.
Yes.
And that's what happened.
Innocence.
I jumped in, and Mooney said, "Hey man, I thought you couldn't swim." So, you know, ain't no thing. As long as I could hold on to the tube with one hand, I'm going around and around in a circle. And suddenly I'm realizing the more I swim, the thing is going out into to the lake. And I'm looking over here, and the shore seems to be fading away. And like it will do in Chicago, Illinois, it started raining.
Of course.
A little mist came up from out of nowhere. Mooney says, "Hey man, I think we ought to go back." So how do I get back? It's swim. So I'm stroking, and the more I stroke, the more the tube goes out to no, do it the other way. So now I do it the other way, and it's going out that. Anyway, I wound up with all the exertion you could possibly think of in the rain. Mooney, my friend, hi Mooney. Mooney, my friend, managed to reach the shore and jump up and get his clothes and got there and split.
Yes.
Okay. I calmed down and I realized if I just, the tide is taking me in.
Okay.
So instead of trying to do this and do this, I just, you know, relaxed. As a matter of fact, it felt kind of nice. I got this nice little mist falling down on me. And when my feet bumped the shore, sliding up, I thought, okay, I'm saved. Luckily, I was at that point, the air in the inner tube was, had completely disappeared. When I hit it, it was like an empty condom or something. And, okay.
Plus the fear of your mother would kill you.
That was another one of those stories.
Great saving grace.
That happened on the south side.
Okay.
Another story, a mother's story.
Right.
I get back to the neighborhood, and Mooney didn't think anything about it. You know, I calmed down, said, "Hey man, you left me. I didn't leave you, man. You were swimming. You know, what I'm supposed to do, take care of ain't your mama." So I thought, you know, let's leave this alone because I'm ready to kill him.
Yes.
But I won't do that.
Indeed.
In the story, I tell the story, I'm winding in and out of, I'm calling them death zones, because it seemed that around the corner was just something that would kill you.
But it's not all death zones in the story. There are some interesting chapters. It's like turning the page where there's romance and excitement and, you know, all the kinds of things that make you want to read.
If you grew up in Chicago and during the time zone, I'm talking about here, and you lived any place near Washington Park, for example, you could go out into this big park. I think the middle of it was large enough to have like 2 or 3 football fields. They had 2 or 3 baseball diamonds. Some people may be playing baseball over here and football over here, and a really nice cinder track where people rented horses. And
sometimes people play rugby too, you said.
they didn't play, they played cricket.
Cricket, that's what it was. Yeah. Cricket, okay, yeah.
That was.
That's another story.
Oh, that's another story.
Okay. All right.
But I'll give you a brief example of it. I'm out in the park, just, you know, going around seeing if I can find something to do. And there are these guys with these beautiful white shirts and with this thing stuck in the ground that looked like some, I don't know what they call them, the wicket.
Okay.
I didn't know that. It looked to me just like 3 or 4 stakes in the ground. And here's the dude winding up, and he's throwing this ball, and this guy has a bat that looks like a
Flat bat.
I don't know what the hell, four-cornered bat.
Yeah.
Looks like a slab of wood. Or something. You know, you see something that you
Forgive us for those who love cricket.
for those, even for those who know cricket, forgive us. Even and you know, I'm looking at everything, and this happened to be a West Indian group. They also had Indians come out from India, and they played together. They played against each other. The Sikhs against the West Indians. And this particular occasion, it was the West Indians, people from Barbados and Trinidad, and they're watching the little kid, you know, looking at them, what's going on? Mm-hmm. The guy comes up to you, what'd you think, man? What? About what? What'd you think about this? What'd you see? Mm-hmm. I don't know, what is it? It's cricket. Well, I don't know what to think. And he said, we don't either. The English, they came and they gave us the game and we started playing and I don't know. You're hungry? I said, you know, because 8, 9 years old, y'all. And he gave me a Trinidad roti. The roti, as I recall it, looks like a taco, but in this case it had, my mouth is beginning to water. It has marinated goat and curry, deliciously seasoned, and 2 or 3 people standing around me, including the lady who made it. How you like that roti? I said, this is the best thing I ever had in my whole life.
Okay.
And I ate it, and they gave me another one.
Okay, and so as you see, though we didn't stay totally on the storyteller's story, you see that this man, Odie Hawkins, is full of stories. Okay, and from the first moment he wakes up and says, showtime, I know I'm going to have the first row seat for an interesting theatrical day.
Hey, well, let's face it. What, come on. What is this? You think this is real? You think this is really, this is, oh no, it's all fiction.
Yes, the Matrix.
This is make-believe. Yes, yes. Look, we got to wind this down.
Yes, but you really should check out the storyteller's story. And it even has a Dr. Ron and a Dr. Ruby.
Oh, I can add this if I can. I was going to add before we got carried away. She did it. Before we got carried away, I was going to talk a little bit about the advantages of self-publishing, because this is a self-published book. As I mentioned earlier, the first 17 were published by Holloway House, and the best thing to be said about the books published by publishing companies is that you have a good distribution system, and when you do things like publish your own books, self-publishing, they, oh, incidentally, this very fine photograph here of me was done by her, Zola Salena-Hawkins. So this is a family enterprise. What I found out with the self-publishing thing, despite the poor distribution system, is that you are in control of your own product, so to speak. And I like that. I like that. Some people would say, well, you can't make the money, or you don't make the money that you would make if you had a book distributed by a major league publishing company, Littleton Brown, Harper, and whoever, and so forth. That may be true, but if you're writing for the satisfaction of writing, or you get the kick that she's talking about, that I get out of doing what I'm doing, there's satisfaction in it enough. However, don't let that prevent you from ordering a copy of the Storyteller's Story.
It through Author House.
Don't let me talk you away from a saying.
Okay, because you can order it through Author House or on Author House or Amazon, and just Google Odie Hawkins books, or Google The Storyteller's Story by Odie Hawkins, and I think you really will enjoy it. Okay, it's a fun read, and with a very happy and unusual ending.
A lot of that stuff happens. Along, it's a wave. I mean, there's some good times, some bad times, you know.
A lot of good times, like, hope has made a comeback.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah,
and there's a lot of hope and fun and a storytelling story. Your website is www.odiehawkins.com.
Is that what it is?
And that is OD, not Audie. Odie Hawkins.
Look, we're going to cut it loose for this evening.
Sorry to keep you so long.
We'll
I
look
hope
forward
you
to
enjoyed
seeing you
it.
again next Monday, same time, around about the same time.
Well, we post this usually on Monday, or we film it on Monday. But you can check YouTube or Facebook, or you'll find us if you look for us. Okay. Thank you for visiting.
Stay up.
Stay up.